Hey, I'm Olivia, and you're listening to Soarin Around WDW. It's time for some Disney news this week, and a lot of things have been happening across the different parks all around the world. So wanted to start back off with a story that I know is a little bit old because it happened a few weeks ago, but it was crazy nonetheless, and that is the naked man at Disneyland on top of the Tiana's restaurant on April 13th. I first saw footage of this on Instagram and honestly could not believe my eyes. I really do not understand what is up with the trend of these people who decide to get naked on rides, hop off rides, swim through the water of different attractions. It blows my mind, honestly. So when I saw this, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. And I'm sure he got banned for life. The weirdest thing about it is there are little kids and other people everywhere. So why do you need to be getting naked? Are you high? Are you totally intoxicated? What is going on? And you need to find a different place to do this in. I really don't understand this, and it's just getting ridiculous at this point. The Disney Destiny preview also happened and looks amazing. There are a lot of really cool things that they have on this ship, and I think that it will make it a really unique experience compared to other cruises that Disney has. These Disney cruise ships just keep getting better and better, and I'm excited to see more as people start to release more and more footage of the preview days. The map also was released for the track of the Monsters, Inc. door coaster. And while I am still very excited about this ride, and I think that it will be really fun, in looking at the map, it does look like a very short attraction, similar to how people feel about Tron, that it's like a minute-ish, under 2 minutes long. And that just doesn't feel very long. I'm sure it's going to, again, have very long wait time, likely will have high lightning lanes priority. And so I just can't imagine it being so short after waiting so long. So hopefully it's not, and it just looks that way on the map and does feel longer or does take a little longer to get through, but something that, was a little disappointing to see, although the ride still looks incredibly cool. The annual pass holder lounge was added at Epcot at the old site of the restaurant Marrakesh, and this just has basic beverages, things like water, mint water, sparkling water, and fresh pressed juices, as well as cold brew coffee. So no real snacks or soda or anything like that there, but a nice place to cool off and take a break that has a good amount of space back in Epcot in an area that is just not being used right now. Honestly, I don't know that an annual pass holder lounge is what they should have done with this space, but I think they're trying to make use of it without putting in the funds to totally deconstruct or do something different at the back of that pavilion. The Oriental Land Coat also shared an early concept of art possibly expanding in Tokyo Disney, and this is a plan that they have kind of come up with over what they would anticipate happening throughout the next decade. The images that I saw showed a lot of change to Adventureland and Westernland at the Tokyo Disneyland Park, as well as updates to Port Discovery at Tokyo Disney Sea. And they really haven't released a lot of details. It's really just the concept art, but the art that they showed does appear to not have numerous classic attractions like the Jungle Cruise, the Enchanted Tiki Room, Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse, and Aquatopia. They did show the Oriental Land Co.'s financial earnings report as part of this theme park growth through 2035, and I'm not sure if this information in these literally specific slides came from an employee that got leaked or if Disney released them themselves. The source that I saw them on was not directly from Disney, but it's super interesting and definitely makes me want to go to Tokyo even more. I'm not really sad if Tokyo were to get rid of the quote-unquote classic attractions. I think those classic attractions have a home in Disneyland. And so why do we need to keep them in every single park, especially for more fast-paced moving and growth parks like Tokyo? And Tokyo has been a big hit. They've had very good ticket prices for people coming from other countries, and travel for a lot of people that I know that went said it was just as inexpensive to fly to Tokyo and do the entire Tokyo Disney experience for the same price they would have paid to fly to California and do Disneyland for the same period of time. So I know Tokyo has been blowing up. We've known quite a few people, friends and acquaintances who have gone to Tokyo Disney in the last year, and it just makes me so jealous, and I want to go too. So I think it's super fun. Maybe when the kids are older, we'll eventually get over there. And then last week, a guest was caught climbing on the Tree of Life at Animal Kingdom. So another person who just clearly, what are you thinking? And this person was caught on a TikTok video, and the video included people screaming to her that she was going to have a lifetime ban from the parks to get down. The girl didn't listen. No one knows who the person is yet or what the ban will be, but typically that is true. It would mean a lifetime ban from the park. So I hope your TikTok video and like everything was worth it, girl. I don't know. Again, was this person not all there? Were they on some kind of drugs? I'm not really sure. Was it just a dare gone wrong? But don't do this, guys. Don't do this. You're going to take away the magic and the fun of the experiences for people in these parks. And it's ridiculous. I don't understand this. Disney's Typhoon Lagoon is also now open again, and Stitch is also back this year doing meet and greets at the water park. Guests now are able to choose which water park to enjoy for the first time in a long time, where both water parks are open at the same time. And the free water park visit on check-in day applies to either park, so you can pick which park you want to go to. I think since Typhoon Lagoon just reopened, that's the more popular pick right now, but it'll be interesting to see if one is more crowded than the other now that they have them reopened at the same time. Back over on the West Coast, the walkway between Cars Land and Avengers Campus is now closed for work on the continued expansion of the Avengers Campus, and that is beginning. They're talking about the attractions as well as potentially more bathrooms over in that area from what I have read. So that will be closed for the time being until they get all that done. So when we're there in just a little under 2 months, that walkway will still be closed. The one-day Epic Universe preview tickets are now on sale for all guests. They range from $144 to $154 for adults and a little bit less than that for kids. Now, Regan and I were talking about this morning. I wish I could have recorded the conversation because I think it was very insightful, but both of us were basically saying, why would they open this up to everyone? If they're opening it up to everyone, is it really a preview anymore? It doesn't feel special. It's not really a special perk. And all these people that paid more for their preview tickets, I'd be pretty ticked because like, yeah, you got to see it first or whatever, but now they're opening it up to everybody. So some thoughts that we had kind of talked through were, number one, are people starting to take off their rose-colored glasses and kind of see that there's still a lot of things that they could have done better or differently? Obviously, the park looks amazing. Obviously, we want to go someday. Obviously, there are things that are just incredible and mind-blowing in these parks. However, it really is, there's a lot of things that I think once it came out and I started to see more videos and talk to more people, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a big problem. Oh yeah, that's a big problem. And they still haven't really worked through all the kinks. So I guess that's why it's still being called a preview and the hours are still fairly limited. But it's not a preview anymore when you open it up to everyone. It just doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel unique. And I'm curious what their max capacity is for these preview times. So anyway, just some things to keep an eye on as they start to release more and more footage and information about Epic Universe. Again, this is still something that we do want to do someday, but I am not surprised that it might be struggling a little more than what people were initially anticipating with all the excitement that people had from the opening day and kind of the friends and family experiences and the influencers and things like that. Then Spaceship Earth, back to Disney, their lounge Geo 82 will open on June 4th with reservations opening on May 6th. So that is coming extremely soon. And a woman is actually suing Disney for $2 million after being hit by a quote unquote mammoth wave at Typhoon Lagoon back in April 2022. I read a little bit about this story. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know personally what happened, but from what I read, she didn't even like break a limb or have a concussion. It sounds like she scraped her knee or her leg or something like that. And tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Not trying to downsize this lady, but it just feels like a cash grab. If you get in a wave pool, you are at risk for being knocked over. That's kind of like the point of the wave pool, is to like ride the waves and, whatever. I think they're super dangerous. I don't love them. I would not let my kids go in one, but I know they're popular, and you kind of look at it before you go in and say like, might get knocked over by these huge waves. So I thought that was a little ridiculous. The Zombies 4 movie that is coming soon to Disney Plus, costumes and props from this film are on display at Hollywood Studios in the Walt Disney Presents building, which is really fun. Eiley has been very into Descendants, and I know their new movie is being filmed currently, but Zombies she hasn't quite gotten into yet, but I loved watching Chandler Kinney on Dancing with the Stars. I think she is phenomenal. So now that Eiley's getting a little older and a little less scared of like zombies and werewolves and stuff, and I know it's a kid movie, but I am excited to watch that with her. And now that they're coming out with another one, even a better time to start watching it so that we can catch up in time for the new movie to come out. I'm guessing that the new movie is coming out in the fall, but I could be wrong. Let me look on that. Oh, no, it is coming out July 10th, 2025. So a summer release. That's right, because they're going to summer camp or something like that. I forgot about that. So that will be coming here pretty soon. And it's cool that the costumes are on display in Hollywood Studios. And last but not least, the new facial recognition that presented at Disneyland caused some big delays at early entry a few weeks ago. And when they were testing it, this was about around early April, and it really kind of caused a lot of hiccups and very long delays for some people. And they didn't have a separate line, I guess, on the first day for the Magic Key users who already had their photo linked. So it was a little bit of a mess, it sounds like. I'm glad they're doing this all before the official 70th anniversary celebration starts, and there are going to be way more guests there. But basically, from what I've read, what they're doing is they're phasing in this facial recognition, starting with the monorail entrance, moving to California Adventure and Disneyland. And the guests that don't have existing photos, who are not Magic Key users or are new Magic Key users, or those with just a regular park pass, they'll have to take their picture at the park using the facial recognition cameras at the turnstiles and link it to their ticket. It does talk about the system still being tested, but there's a video going around on Instagram that indicates that a Magic Band Plus bracelet can be used with the facial recognition gates, but that might not be fully operational quite yet. That would be nice. I'm still trying to figure out if my Magic Band Plus from Disney World will work for Disneyland. I hope so. That would be great, because I don't really want to have a separate one for Disneyland. But yeah, it would be nice not to have to stop and worry about the picture recognition stuff so much. So we'll see how that pans out in the next few weeks here before we head on over to Disneyland. And that is all for today's Disney news. Thanks you guys for listening, and keep listening to enjoy today's episode where we get into some more of the World Showcase over at Epcot. Hey flight crew, and welcome to this week's episode of Soarin Around WDW. We are here today to continue our journey around the World Showcase, starting with the African Outpost and then moving into Germany and Italy. And while these three areas or pavilions of the World Showcase might not be as much of a hot topic as our last episode with Mexico and Norway and Japan, they do have some unique history that we wanted to go through and kind of talk about what's here and what could be coming to this area in the future. So to start off with the African Outpost, this was created in 1983, and while it's not technically considered a pavilion, it is one that was added a little bit later than the rest of the World Showcase, which officially opened with the park October 1st, 1982. And all years had a pretty extensive section about this history that is kind of between the China Pavilion and the Germany Pavilion, for those of you who are not familiar with the layout of the World Showcase. And a lot of people might walk right by it and not realize that it is a place that's identified on the actual map of the park. But some of the never built pavilions that were discussed by Disney in creating the World Showcase included Israel, Spain, and Equatorial Africa. And according to the All Ears article, Equatorial Africa was so far along in planning that it was actually included as a future project on the opening day of the Epcot map. And during the Disney TV special, Epcot Centered the Grand Opening Celebration, that aired on October 23rd, 1982, the host Danny Kaye interviewed Roots author and project advisor Alex Haley about this pavilion that was supposed to be added to the lineup of pavilions for World Showcase. But obviously, it never actually came to fruition, and we'll talk a little bit more about this here as we move into the history of this area. The continent of Africa is made up of obviously many different poor nations, and building a pavilion at Epcot is a very expensive proposition. Many of the other pavilions actually sponsored their country, and so for Africa, that wasn't as much of an option. Disney proposed this pavilion that included a collection of different African countries rather than just one. And this multi-nation concept kind of helped distribute the costs among several countries. But after searching and many negotiations, letters of intent were actually signed by Kenya, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast. And so it was going to be called Equatorial Africa to combine all of those countries into one pavilion. This was supposed to feature a number of attractions that were originally on the drawing board. The first two were films, one called Africa Rediscovered, and it was supposed to be narrated by Alex Haley and would present the abundant wildlife of the area, the history of the region, as well as modern day Africa and what was there in the 80s. The second film was going to be called Heartbeat of Africa, and that would focus more on the African music and conclude with a laser show that was synchronized to the sound of native instruments. Another idea that they had tossed around was a large tree house, and from its heights, guests could look down on a jungle watering hole. And they had this diorama of different trees, boulders, rushing waters, and it would highlight a rear projection movie of animals kind of advancing to drink in the night. And of course, no World Showcase Pavilion would be complete without entertainment. So they did discuss live entertainment options. They had planned a small amphitheater that was going to be carved into Disney rocks to showcase African dance and music. Originally, it was scheduled to open sometime in 1983, but negotiations dragged on for quite a while, and so they decided to build this temporary African placeholder where guests could grab a snack and pick up a souvenir. And this was done for two reasons, according to All Ears. The first reason was that it would pacify guests who had heard about the Equatorial Africa Pavilion on TV and wondered, where is it and why is it not here? But the second reason is because the area between China and Germany is very large. And so something needed to be put there along the route to kind of help people keep going and give the World Showcase more of a completed look. But unfortunately, the actual Equatorial Africa Pavilion never came to pass for quite a few different reasons. First, there was a lot of political unrest in the region, which made it difficult to carry on negotiations with the different nations, and their governments were not stable at all as well. Not to mention, the nations were also kind of squabbling amongst themselves for top billing at the pavilion. And then there also was a money problem still. A lot of African countries just could not afford or justify spending the money that was needed to build this World Showcase pavilion. However, Disney was able to find one sponsor, which was a company located in South Africa, but that was a big issue in the 80s. South Africa had a lot of different political issues going on, and so Disney thought better of associating itself with what was called in this article a political bombshell. Eventually, the project was shelved, and so they opened the Harambe area at Disney's Animal Kingdom, as we all know. And so once that started to kind of come into an idea of coming out with the Animal Kingdom and featuring Africa there, the future of an African pavilion along the World Showcase died with that idea. So officially, the African themed area between China and Germany is now just known as the Outpost, although many do call it the African Outpost or the Refreshment Outpost. And since it was constructed as a temporary placeholder, there is not a lot of information about this area available across books or the internet. This was really the only thing that I could find was this All Ears article that went this in depth about what happened to this pavilion. It does have an area with face painting, a wood carving area, and a refreshment area. And since Animal Kingdom ended up having a more dedicated Africa section, why does this still exist? Why haven't they done anything with this area? No one is really officially sure, but this would be an ideal space for a brand new full pavilion, which we will have to dream up in our future episodes which country we would put here and why. But I think for such a large space, I'm very surprised that they've not done anything else here, that they've not gotten rid of this because they have so much dedicated to Africa in the Animal Kingdom. So, what are your thoughts on this pavilion, Dad? Do you remember this being announced with the initial pavilions or any of this information from this grand opening celebration TV special?
Yes, I do remember them kicking around the idea years ago, as you mentioned, that they were going to do a full-blown African, showcase there. I don't know what kind of, they did, like you said, you mentioned some different rides, different things, or different attractions they would have in there. Yeah, and I remember walking, as we've been, all of us have been to Epcot many times,
Yeah.
walking through there. And I remember Regan when he was little. I think there were some drums. What there's some African drums he used to
Yeah.
go beat on all the
Mm-hmm.
time. That's what I
Yep.
remember. I don't think I ever bought anything for the refreshment station, which I think was just basically, sodas and water. It was a very small little area, and I think it was right before or right after the lift bridge that lets the boats go out to the main showcase lagoon.
Yeah.
Right, there's a bridge there that opens up, so it's right there. But yeah, I do remember it well, and we just kind of passed on through. But I do remember again your brother beating on the drums when he was really little. That's about all I remember of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty empty. I know actually a few episodes ago when Regan and I were talking about different pavilions, I think it was maybe one of our trivia questions in one of our early episodes, and Regan said something about the African pavilion, and I kind of made fun of him. I'm like, there's no African pavilion. He's like, yes, there is. And so now, like, I apologize, listeners, there technically is like this outpost, and a lot of people call it the African outpost still, even though it's technically just labeled the outpost. So it is still represented. I think Animal Kingdom just does such a better job of representing it. And so yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually goes away and something else goes there because it is a lot of open real estate for sure. And then moving on over to our next pavilion, that if you're moving clockwise around the World Showcase, Germany comes up next. And this was an original pavilion as well, October 1st, 1982. The original design of the pavilion was actually supposed to have a boat ride along the Rhine River, and it was going to focus on German folklore in a similar manner to Mexico and Norway in the way that they had their rides initially. And according to the Walt Disney Company's 1976 annual report, the ride was to be, quote, a cruise down Germany's most famous rivers, the Rhine, the Tauber, and the Ruhr, and the Isar. And detailed miniatures of the famous landmarks will also be seen, including one of the Colony Cathedral. I'm probably not saying that right. So the building was built to make this, which I don't think I realized when I look at the Germany Pavilion. The actual building that is there has a huge space behind it, but Disney did not actually complete the ride construction by opening day. And so it was announced that it was going to be in this phase 2 of expansion, which you'll hear a little bit more about as we go through this episode. And to avoid costs, Disney ended up dropping all the phase 2 attractions that they had initially announced and decided that any expansion projects would only be allowed if the host country funded for it, which was, I'm not shocked, a typical Disney move to get some extra money. But because of lack of funding, the ride building is now just used as storage space. And you can actually see the main entrance hall because now it's the dining area for the beer garden. And the ride building is used as storage for floats, a workshop, and cast member rehearsal space. The Germany Pavilion itself is designed to look like a German town, but with architecture from different eras and regions. And the Platz, which is the square, is decorated with a statue of St. George and the dragon and a clock tower. And then the beer garden at the rear of the courtyard sells traditional German food. The pavilion also has a bunch of different small shops selling German goods, including dolls and cuckoo clocks. And the area near the pavilion is decorated by an extensive model village with working model trains, which is what I remember the most about this pavilion as a kid, going and watching the trains. Regan was very into trains when he was little, so we'd often go there, stop, have a Mickey ice cream bar or something, and watch the trains kind of roll around the track through the little village. And there are characters from Walt Disney's animated feature Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was inspired by the version of the tale that was attributed to the Brothers Grimm, and that they do make appearances in and around the pavilion. The miniature train and village that I mentioned is just kind of this small outdoor model garden railway. It was originally created for the Flower and Garden Festival, but was very, very popular, so they decided to keep it around. And the trains that are used in the exhibit are LGB trains. There is also a glockenspiel, which is a clock that overlooks the St. George's Platz. And St. George, there's a huge statue of him slaying a dragon that's in that area as well. So this is another pavilion that doesn't have a big attraction, but I do know it's very popular, especially during food and wine, because it obviously has a lot of beer selection being from Germany. There also are a couple of things that we'll talk about here in a little bit that you can get there that are unique, and the meet and greet as well. But I think the train is obviously the thing that most people think of when they think of this pavilion. It's kind of at the front, so you see it as you're walking past. But what do you recall about this pavilion, Dad, and anything in particular that you've enjoyed over the years when stopping by here?
Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time in the Germany pavilion because there wasn't, again, there wasn't an attraction there. So it wasn't a, you kind of race to the ones that have the cool attractions. That's just the way people are.
Yeah.
But I think the architecture and the square there at the beginning and the statue and the cuckoo clocks. And I think there's a Christmas, is there a Christmas store in there somewhere or they sell Christmas or maybe nutcrackers for Christmas, something like that, that we used to go in all the time too. So yeah, poke around the stores and I think the architecture's fantastic. Short of that, I don't think I've ventured much further in train area, the train garden or whatever there. We watched that many times, and I still, even to this day, when we walk around there, I'll stop there and spend some time watching that. Since that's something I always wanted to do as a kid is have a train set, which I never did. So I do
Yeah.
enjoy looking at that. But that's what I remember. Yeah, it's a cool place.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have not ventured that far back into the pavilion very often. It's really just like seeing the train at during flower and garden time, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, different decor that they have kind of out front with the hedges and everything. The topiaries are all kind of in the front of the pavilion, so I don't really venture back into it that often. But then moving over into Italy, this was another original pavilion, October 1st, 1982. And this pavilion features a plaza surrounded by a collection of buildings that look like Venetian, Florentine, and Roman architecture. And the Venetian architecture is represented by a recreation of St. Mark's Campanile, or the bell tower, a replica of Doge's Place. The pavilion's design is also inspired by different hallmarks of Italian architecture, which include Neptune's fountain, that's supposed to kind of look like Rome's Trevi Fountain, the Il Bel Cristallo shop, which is meant to resemble the exterior of the Sistine Chapel, as well as musicians, clowns, and acting troupes that often appear in the piazza throughout the day. There are a lot of small shops kind of selling Italian goods like candy and wine. And the original plans for the pavilion called for an expansion that would be built in Epcot's phase two, like we talked about for Germany, which left a wall with nothing behind it at the rear of the pavilion because that was supposed to include this gondola dark ride and Roman ruins walk-through attractions. So when phase two was canceled, the pavilion was kind of left incomplete. However, a restaurant that is called Via Napoli that was designed by Florentine architects Stefano Nardini and Raffaella Malucchi, opened under the Patina Restaurant Group in 2010 and brought the pavilion its long-awaited completion. So it features Florentine architecture, authentic Neapolitan cuisine, and the water that's used to make the pizza dough is actually imported from Pennsylvania to simulate authentic Neapolitan dough. So Via Napoli's three wood-burning ovens pay tribute to the three active volcanoes in Italy, which are Etna, Vesuvio, and Stromboli. And to do this, each of the three ovens are sculpted in the shape of the face of the god that the corresponding volcano is named after, which I thought was super interesting. They put a lot of thought into this restaurant. The long communal table in the center of the room was also built in Florence, Italy, and all has hand-painted tiles that depict iconic monuments in Italy as well. Some other cool things about Via Napoli are its high vaulted ceilings, imported ceramics, and blown glass, as well as the abundance of windows that flood the establishment. And there's a lot of natural light in this building. So the main attraction of this, I definitely think, is that restaurant. It's actually a restaurant that I don't ever remember eating at, but I know a lot of people enjoy. Have we eaten there? And we can kind of talk a little bit about it in the restaurant section too, but have we eaten there, Dad, when we were younger?
No, back in the day, no, we never ate there. As later, Doreen and I have eaten there a couple of times. Of course, she's Italian, so and we both love
Yeah.
Italian food. But yeah, no, not when you were kids. No, I can guarantee we there wasn't much going on there other than I guess the restaurants, right? There was a couple little shops, if I remember right. But other than that, it was pretty boring, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, I have a picture of Regan and I outside of the fountain there that I remember very well, like stopping by that fountain and taking pictures. But otherwise, yeah, similarly, this is an area that I don't think that we've explored a lot. I think the restaurant sounds delicious, and we'll kind of talk about the different eating options here in a minute, but no, it's not one that I've explored a lot of. So, kind of moving through, obviously, we did talk about there are no attractions in these pavilions that we're talking about today. So skipping right over into dining, as we talked about, the Outpost does have a little option called the Refreshment Outpost, and what's served here are Dole Whip options, some slushies, fountain drinks, beers, and vodka lemonade. They do also have a lot of seasonal festival offerings as well. So during the food and wine, as well as like the Festival of the Arts and different things, they do have unique offerings there, kind of depending on which festival is going on. But for the most part, very quick eats, kind of ranging from $4 to $15 depending on what you're getting. And yeah, like Dad said, I don't ever remember stopping here to get anything, maybe picking up a drink, but I don't think that we've ever really stopped here. It's not a place we would like look forward to stopping or anything that I can recall. And then the Biergarten restaurant in Germany. This is actually a buffet restaurant that I did not realize that. And it's $28 per child, $49 per adult. And they serve things like rotisserie chicken, potatoes, sausages, sauerkraut, schnitzel, and desserts. They do also have beer and wine flights that are available for an additional cost. And they have a special drink called a German Spezi. I did not know what this was. Now I kind of want to try it, even though it sounds a little gross. It's Coke and Fanta, like orange Fanta mixed together. I've never heard of that. Have you heard of that, Dad?
I've never heard of it, but I'd like to try it.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, I like Coke and I like Fanta, so it sounds like something I'd be willing to try. This restaurant is another one I've never eaten at. I think expensive restaurants like this, unless I know I'm 100% going to eat all the food and enjoy it, the cost is hard for me to justify because I can't see myself sitting there and eating enough food to make the cost worth it without a character dining option. I know that they have the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs dining option at one of the outside hotels. I believe it's the Storybook Dining at Artist Point with Snow White, which is very popular. But I wish that they would do that in this pavilion. It would make a lot of sense to have a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs character dining and they could keep the same food. And this is at the restaurant they do the character dining at is the Wilderness Lodge. But yeah, otherwise, it's not really a restaurant that super interests me. The food doesn't sound bad, but I just don't know that I would eat $50 worth of food to make it worth it. Have you ever eaten here, Dad?
No, I mean the chicken and the potatoes and the sausage is all fine, but when it comes to the sauerkraut and some of the other German stuff,
Schnitzel?
it's just
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much my mom and dad would probably love that kind of stuff, but I no, I would be the same. I wouldn't spend the money to eat there.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's also another like quick service area in Germany called Summerfest. And this is mostly like large beers, like 24 ounces of beers for like $20. They do also have these 5-ounce pour wines. And then they do have some snacky stuff, so like a bratwurst, pretzel bread pudding, and these huge like jumbo pretzels. Things here kind of range for food from $5 to $12, from drinks usually around $20. And I have not stopped here. I've heard the pretzels are very good. It's definitely on my list, but I have not actually stopped here. So that is somewhere that eventually I would like to try. Is this a place that you guys have ever stopped, or have you ever had the big pretzel from here, Dad?
Never did the pretzel. Frankly, I don't think I've ever done a pretzel at Disney all the years that we've gone.
Oh,
I love
really?
pretzels. I love pretzels, but I normally I'm, it's the ice cream and, the soda head guy that I am. So yeah,
Yeah.
I never have it. And I don't think any of us have ever, Doreen and I have never got a pretzel, but we love pretzels, but we just never got one.
Yeah, I've had the typical Mickey pretzel, but I don't think I've ever, this is like an actual like German pretzel, like beer cheese pretzel that I think would be really, really good. That is not a place that I have ever stopped. So the next restaurant is Tutto Italia Ristorante in Italy, and this is an a la carte sit-down restaurant, and appetizers include things like Caesar salad, calamari, prosciutto, and those kind of run 20-ish dollars each. Entrees include salmon, swordfish, slow braised short rib, New York strip steak, chicken parm, and then pastas as well, like fettuccine, gnocchi, lasagna, spaghetti, and those are all around $30 with a seasonal risotto about 40. The meats can go kind of up to into the 50s. So it is a little bit more of a pricey restaurant, but supposed to be very good, authentic Italian food. Have you guys tried this, Dad, with Doreen, or have you only been to the Via Napoli?
Now, we've been to this one a couple of times also a number of years ago, but it was very good. The service was good. The food was good. And it wasn't out of this world pricing. There wasn't any character. I don't think it was any sort of character meal or anything like that, but the food was very good. Service was great.
Okay, good. Yeah, it looks like a really good menu for sure. And then Tutto Gusto Wine Cellar in Italy is basically, according to Disney's website description, it says experience the flavors of Italy at this cozy wine bar. Recalling an authentic Italian wine cellar, Tutto Gusto offers 200 bottles of Italian wines plus beer and a small plate menu of meats, cheese, panini, pasta, and desserts. So more of like a wine tasting experience. That's not something that we've ever been interested in doing while we're at the parks. It, I think, is very expensive, but that's something that you can do, kind of the wine cellar section of that restaurant. And then Via Napoli, which we did touch on a bit earlier, also in the Italy Pavilion. This is a sit-down restaurant that is also a la carte, and they do have Caesar or a house salads, as well as tortellini, spaghetti, fettuccine, manicotti, carbonara, which are all about $30 each, as well as chicken parm, sea bass, beef medallions that are grilled between $40 to $50 each. And they do have a large pizza selection. Individuals are about $30 a pizza, which is pricey. And the bigger ones to share are about $60, and they have different kinds like meat lovers, margarita, four cheese, white pizza, and then you can also build your own pizza. So it is pricey for pizza, but I've heard like the wood burning ovens, the wood-fired ovens are like really, it makes it really, really good pizza. Is that what your recollection of going there, Dad, is that it was pretty good pizza?
It was awesome. That was the main reason we were going. Like we used to go to the Eat to the Beat concert series in the fall
Yeah.
to see different groups play, and we would make a point to go to Via Napoli. We've been there probably 3 or 4 times, I would say, over the years since it's opened, and we love the pizza there. Kind of a neat little vibe. Yeah, it's excellent. We always enjoy going there.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what it's on our top of our list to try. I think the price always scares us away a little bit, but I think from what I've heard, it's one of the best restaurants, like sit down in all of Disney. So that and the other one, the Tutto Italia Ristorante, sounds great as well. They also have a gelato restaurant, which is called Gelateria Toscana. And this has different flavors of gelato. So chocolate, vanilla, cookies and cream, mint chocolate chip, as well as strawberry espresso and a flavor of the month, which rotates. It kind of depending on how big of a bowl you get, it's between $9 and $14. So pretty typical Disney ice cream price, maybe a little bit more. And then they also have floats and milkshakes that run about $12 each. They do have some Sunday type creations and some cookie sandwiches, tiramisu, cannolis, and homemade hot chocolate, which sounds great. This is another place I think we have stopped before. I don't super recall. I remember walking by a few times and the line was like crazy long. And so we kind of were like, all right, we can get ice cream elsewhere. But I do remember it being good, but pricey as most things are at Disney. Is this someplace that you guys have stopped, Dad? Have you tried their hot chocolate that's homemade there?
We actually did when we were going to. It was the Christmas show at the American Gardens Theater. Help me out with the name of it.
Oh yeah. Oh my
All the
gosh.
choirs from all the different places. Can't
Candlelight
remember.
processional.
Candlelight
Candlelight
processional.
processional.
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually went to that probably about 5 or 6 times over the years. We'd stop. I'd stop there and get their hot chocolate many times. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's good to know. And then some noteworthy shops that are kind of in these different pavilions. So the Caramel Kusch, I know I'm probably not saying this right. It's German for caramel kitchen. And this charming shop basically has this sweet smell of buttery caramel. And when you're inside, it basically is like a Werther's almost. Like the Werther's company, they have all these different caramel candies as well as like caramel popcorn. They do have some different cookies as well that have like a caramel flavored and different caramel apples, which I've heard from here are like especially delicious. They do have this golden caramel as the star ingredient in all of their things that are featured there. So in the cookies, in the candy squares, in the apples, and then they also have the popcorn. And so you can also kind of watch the cast members work on making these similar to like a fudge shop, like I think of Kilwins, which our family loves. And it's supposed to be very delicious. I don't ever remember stopping here specifically for this, but it sounds like something I would enjoy. I know we had gotten caramel apples and like chocolate apples from different places around Disney, like definitely the Main Street Bakery. But is this somewhere that you guys have stopped when going around the world, Dad?
We never have, but I think next time we go, I'll have to stop. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
think I
like, this
really
all
ever
sounds
paid
delicious.
attention that they had. Yeah, that they had this here, and unfortunately, I'm a big chocolate and sugar guy, so I'll have to stop there sometime the next time we go.
Yeah, it sounds good. And then you mentioned the Christmas shop, which I did have to go and look up and kind of add to our list here. But there is a Christmas shop in Germany called Die Weihnachtsecke, which translates to the Christmas store. And it does have Christmas year round there. They do sell
Yeah.
nutcrackers. They have these giant nutcrackers kind of in the windows, which you were remembering. And at Christmas time, they also kind of have even more merchandise than usual, but it is a year-round Christmas shop with ornaments, nutcrackers, a lot of very popular items there, and the famous pickle ornament as well, which is, I guess, a German thing. And where people get the pickle ornament and kind of pass it along. That's something that some people do. So they do, I guess wooden nutcrackers were actually first made in Germany in the 1800s. So that's a big thing that they sell there. They have all kinds of different nutcrackers that are like themed and different color coordinated and stuff like that that you can get there. And they do have steins, which is like a big stone mug. That's another big German thing there with like Santa all over them and some Christmas apparel that usually makes its way there during Christmas time at the park. So that's another cool shop kind of in the Germany area. So that's, yeah, those are kind of the noteworthy shops between these areas. There's nothing really super unique that I could find in Italy that I was like, oh, I'd really want to stop there to shop necessarily. But I feel like Italy is where I'd want to eat, and then Germany is where I'd want to get dessert and shop, it sounds like. So there's, yeah, very cool for them not having big attractions. I think pavilions are all very well done, very rich in the culture. They all do have the kid cot stops, so all a place that your kiddo can stop to get their little suitcase stamped and decorated and learn about that area and the culture when you're making your way around, which we had talked about last week that Ziploc sponsors. So just some neat places to stop by. I've definitely added some restaurants and foods that I want to try onto my list from this section of the park. But that's a little bit about these three pavilions. The only character meet and greet between these three pavilions is Snow White in Germany, which is no surprise. Occasionally, you'll see the seven dwarfs kind of roaming around this area, but not as often anymore. I think when we were kids, we've talked a few times on these episodes about how there were a lot more characters just wandering in Epcot. And they do still have that from time to time, but it's not as common. And I know the dwarfs, obviously being from Germany and the Snow White story that is based on the German fairy tale, it was more popular for them to be wandering around there, but not as often do you see them. It's mostly just Snow White, and she is listed in the app with meet and greet times, which is right there, kind of in the front of the Germany pavilion, actually usually on the other side, closer to the lagoon area. And I do remember meeting her when I was a little kid. She's one that Eiley has not met yet. She's high on her list, especially after the more recent movie. I'm sure it'll be more popular again for her meet and greet. That's the only character meet and greet in these three pavilions. And then for today's old versus new, so instead of doing our typical old versus new, we're actually going to talk about which country we would like to see added to the World Showcase, kind of where that outpost is, just because there's a lot of area, a lot of space in that section. So instead of replacing a country, is there a country that comes to mind that you think is missing from the World Showcase data and would be a cool addition to what you'd want to see there?
I would have to go with Australia.
Okay, that would be a cool one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different countries you could add there, but I also thought, I think Australia would just be, there's just so much you could add with the outback and everything. And, it's such a beautiful country. Yeah, I think Australia would be good.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I would love to see more like South American representation, which I know we're going to get a little bit more of when they're doing this expansion in Animal Kingdom, but almost like Machu Picchu kind of area. And if they were talking about, bringing in some more different IP, intellectual property, thinking of like Emperor's New Groove and kind of the Machu Picchu area would be really cool. So more like Peruvian. Their food is really good. They could have definitely some awesome food there. They could do more with that. So I think Peru is the country that when I was thinking about this, there, like you said, there's a lot you could do with it, but Peru is one that I would love to see for sure. And then talking about our trivia for today, back when they had illuminations at Epcot, the question was which country did not light up during illuminations? Was it Morocco, Japan, Italy, or Mexico? I want to say Morocco because it's kind of farther back, but maybe Italy?
I'll say Morocco only because that was a little bit newer. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'll go with Morocco too, also.
Okay, let's see. Yes, it's Morocco. So actually, it says the reason, it's cool that it gives the reason. Because of religious reasons, the tower that represents Morocco does not light up. So I guess it's something about the religion that they
Oh,
celebrate in Morocco. That's why it didn't light up. Interesting. I thought it was maybe just because it was like kind of
okay,
off the beaten path. But wow.
right.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's a little bit into this episode. I know this one was a little bit shorter than our last, mostly because we're trying to kind of get into more of the history of each section. And if I added the next three pavilions, it would have made it a little too long for this episode and the one after that. So we kind of did this shorter episode with some Disney news up front. But next time, we're going to kind of move on to American Adventure, Japan, and Morocco and talk through those pavilions, which have a little bit more in the way of attractions than this section did. So, looking forward to that. And we hope that you guys have a good rest of your week. Thanks for hanging out with us. And let us know in the comments which country you would like to see added to the World Showcase. I always love to hear people's opinions and see what you guys are thinking. But that's it for this week. I hope you all have a good week. See you next week.
See you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into our old versus new debates. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And for our Spotify listeners, a follow and a 5-star review would mean the world. If you're listening on Apple, hit that 5-star button and leave us a written review as well. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.